Inequalities are statements that describe groups of numbers. For example, x is greater than negative 2 are all the numbers bigger than negative 2. N is less than 5 are all the numbers smaller than 5. In order to create a graph of these numbers, we need a number line. If we were to graph x is greater than negative 2, we first need to create an open circle at negative 2. The reason it's an open circle and not a closed circle is because negative 2 is not part of our answers. Negative 2 is not greater than negative 2. But we can shade in everything that is greater than negative 2. So we just draw an arrow in the positive direction. Finding solutions to inequalities are not much more complicated than finding solutions to equations. First, let's solve 3x plus 15 is less than 3, and we'll graph the solution set. First, I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides, keeping everything balanced, and get left with 3x is less than negative 12. Next, divide both sides by 3, and find that x is less than negative 4. Well, that's my solution. So all I have to do now is draw a line, pick a point negative 4, draw my open circle, and shade in everything that is less than negative 4. So my graph should finish up looking like this. There is only one difference between solving equations and solving inequalities. When we multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, we need to make sure that we reverse the direction of the inequality. Our example here is negative 5p is less than 10. Here I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. When I do this, the negative 5's cancel out and I'm left with p on this side. Here, 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. And then I need to remember to switch the inequality around so that I go from less than to greater than. Now I have p is greater than negative 2. This we've already graphed in this video. So we start at negative 2. And we circle it and draw an arrow to everything greater than negative 2. Sometimes when solving inequalities, we find that our variables disappear. One of two things can happen in this case. Either the inequality you're left with makes sense, or it doesn't. Negative 10y is less than negative 2 times 5y minus 3. First, we'll distribute the negative 2, so we end up with negative 10y is less than negative 10y plus 6. Now add 10y to both sides, and we find that 0 is less than 6. Now we all know from elementary school that 0 is less than 6, so we can state that the solution to this is all real numbers. What this means is that I can put any value in for y, and I still get a valid inequality as an answer. So if I drew my number line, really what I'm shading in and what I'm saying my answer is absolutely everything on that number line. So I can shade everything in, and that's my solution set, all real numbers. Now let's look at an example where our inequality makes no sense whatsoever. Here I have 3 times x minus 2 is greater than 3x plus 2. First, I'm going to start by distribution. 3x minus 6 is now greater than 3x plus 2. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides, thus cancelling out my variable. I get the solution negative 6 is greater than positive 2. Last time I checked, a negative number is not bigger than a positive number, so here we say that we have no solution. With no solution, we have no graph. There are 3 things to remember when solving inequalities. 1. We reverse the sign when multiplying or dividing both sides by a negative number. Number 2. If we end up with no variable and a true inequality, we get a solution of all real numbers. And 3. If we get rid of our variable and we have an inequality that makes no sense whatsoever, then we have no solution. If you follow these rules, solving inequalities should be a little bit easier.